folks, I want to address something that is a very common misperception, especially if you have any religious background, about the whole self love movement, self care, selfishness, um, and the trauma brain. Because there's a distinct line between human beings where you've got people who have their survival instinct is wired for them to survive in a healthy way, and they naturally move towards pleasure and away from pain. That's how we're designed to operate. However, when you've been wired from a young age with a belief that your existence is bad, that you are bad, that you there are so many reasons this happens, but we become so accustomed to suffering and living in a negative space that our brain tends toward pain because it's familiar, tends toward wanting to die because it would be relief, and it moves away from pleasure. It moves away from meeting our basic needs, and the subconscious mind is putting us on a current of suffering and victimhood and just that, which is really, really unhelpful. So we say these words, we toss them around, and there can be a lot of heightened emotions around this and a lot of discussion and argument around it. I've seen quite a bit in my work, and I just want to highlight that self-love is very, very necessary for people who are coming from that place of being so accustomed to suffering that their subconscious mind believes that's what they deserve. This is what we do. This is how we live. This is what normal is. It's very, I mean, it took me, I can't tell you how much effort it took me to make myself eat breakfast, and it's almost 1 p.m. And I could tell that it's just because my own brain is still somewhat in this addicted to suffering space, and I couldn't tell I was hungry, but I felt really irritable, and I finally made an executive decision to make myself some food and realized, oh, I'm just hungry. But I didn't feel hungry, right? Because my limbic system was like, oh, we're in a suffering space. This is normal. I feel irritable. I feel low energy. That's how I'm supposed to feel. And it's like, no, I deserve to feel good. So that's very different. And I think people who already have the main literature I've seen, articles and arguments from people who say, well, of course, everyone, loves themselves naturally. And they'll go into this with Christianity, with, love others as you love yourself. And there are a lot of us where loving ourselves, taking care of our basic needs for sleep and food and to feel okay, that is the hardest thing in the world. And it can take years to rewire that programming and heal all that trauma. It's a very difficult thing. So I just want to put this out there because I see that natural bent towards pleasure and away from pain as a huge gift and a huge positive, because it's something I'm beginning to experience more and more. But it's not something I ever experienced before in my life. And there's a lot of people I work with where that's the case. And I just want to put this out there to give us a scientific perspective, so to speak, a brain perspective. It is science of why there can be, you have these words like self-love. And aside from that, a lot of people define the self as the ego. And some people define the self as like your true self or your higher self or your soul. And those are the like almost opposite parts of you. So how you're defining what the self is. I mean, loving on your ego is not the best thing in the world. A lot of us need to work on having more healthily integrated egos. But for people like myself, it took me years to develop an ego. I didn't have one. And that's actually, it's as bad. It's just as bad as having too big of an ego. In some ways, it's worse. So I just wanted to put this out there so that if you're walking around in the world and you see these things kind of thrown everywhere and you're like, this is stupid. Why is everyone so self-obsessed? It's not self-obsession for a lot of us. Selfies and all of that, it's a way for people to realize that they're real and they exist and they matter. And that was the case for me. There was a period of time where I took a lot of selfies, and it was me like trying to reconnect with the fact that I have a body. And it literally was only a few months ago that I finally realized that I'm a real person and I actually exist, which sounds insane. And I'm very well aware of that while I was having the aha moment. And I'm still kind of like amazed that that's possible for a person to live that long and not believe they're real. It's kind of wild, but that's the reality out there for some people. So just to provide enough information for people in either camp to be able to just look at the other camp and say, okay, that's not my life. I'm going to go this way, instead of feeling confused or frustrated or irritated that other people are spreading falsities or something like along those lines. So that is my This is what I wanted to share today because it's wild. It's a wild world we live in. This place is it's crazy. It's a big place. A lot of things can happen that we never could have imagined. So much love, my friends, and I'll talk to you soon.